This is the Shrimp Trawler video channel Strat-O-Matic Baseball Excel Game of the Week.
Welcome back, baseball fans, to the Game of the Week, Fall League 1977-80 era. Today, the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies tangle at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. Interesting era, interesting roster composition, interesting offseason trade for the New York Mets. Changing of the guard, the change of the guard. Mets dominant in the beginning of the decade, of course. Phillies were just getting started, needed some guy named Mike Schmidt to arrive. Took him a while. Well, now we're late in the decade, and the Mets, oh my goodness, kind of a bunch of old men running around, letting balls roll through their legs. And the Phillies are making the push to get a World Series ring before 1980. They tried last year, couldn't get it. Lost in the World Series. Let's look at the standings before we play Game 2 of a 5-game series. The stats here and the standings here. And here we go, folks. National League East. It has been the surprising Marlins, having a great year, are tied for first with the Phillies. Nice year for both squads. And then at the bottom, you see there's the New York Mets in a... Not much to say, really. It's just that it's kind of the end of the era for them. They traded Seaver in the offseason. So, but they still get a primetime TV game on the Saturday game of the week because they have that New York market, of course. They like to get those guys on TV as much as possible. So we got Mets-Phillies. What happened in Game 1 of a 5-game series? Well, the Mets sent Craig Swan, their ace, out there against Larry Christensen for the Phillies. And poor Craig Swan was not even looking over at Lee Mazzilli, as Mazzilli let a single drop in front of him in the first inning, and then you have an RBI triple. Then he let another hit at center field, scored another run, and you guessed it, folks, a hit in the 5th off of Mazzilli's defense, and able to sac fly in all 4 runs. Now Mazzilli's an excellent fielder. It was bizarre. He's a 2 center fielder, and we rolled a single, and a single 3 times on center X in this game. Unprecedented, really. Can't recall it's ever happening before. Poor Lee Mazzilli. Poor frustrated Craig Swan. His defense let him down. Otherwise, he pitched well. Gave up just the 4 runs. More than enough, well, for Christensen. The new look Mets, they got Pete Rose in the offseason in lieu of losing Hall of Famer Tom Seaver. He looks good in pinstripes. He looks great in the pinstripes of the Met uniform. Tim McCarver, remember him? He, former Philly, is now in New York. And, yeah, you got Ray Knight coming over from Cincinnati in that trade. He'll have a long tenure for the Mets. They got him there early. It was part of that big off-season trade. Pat Zachary's in town. So, yeah, it's a new-look Met roster. Game 2 of a best-of-5, again, in the vet. And who else? Pitching today for the New York Mets, the last hope, Jerry KOOSMAN, the lonely connection from that World Series roster. And for the Phillies, interesting number 3 starter for them, Roger Erickson, acquired from Minnesota in the offseason. They weren't very comfortable. They didn't think their starting pitching was good enough to get into a World Series beyond Carlton and Christensen, so they went out and got Roger Erickson and Rick Williams from the Twins and Houston, respectively. So, today, from the vet, Phillies want to go up 2-0 in the best-of-5. Let's get started. Lee Mazzilli will lead off for the Mets. 69 off Erickson, rolls a second. Larvell blanks, 39 short. And a Rose. By any other name, it's kooky. It looks weird to actually see Pete Rose with the Mets. But 1-7, let's take a look at Pete Rose's card. And the strategy, of course, in this trade, believe it or not, this is 78 Pete Rose. Still a Cincinnati Red. But the Mets demanded him in the Seaver trade, and I would have done it as well. And they'll play for the Mets for a year, maybe two, before we let Pete Rose eventually get to these Philadelphia Phillies by 1979. And we'll let him continue that trajectory he has for the Phils in the early 80s, and then maybe back to the Reds and Expos if necessary. But 1-7 is a clean single for Pete. C Steeler. Not going anywhere with 2 outs. Tim McCarver, 2-7, rolls to second base. Bottom of 1. Ray Gross, 1-8, is a walk. Batting second, Larry Boa. Almost want to hit and run here. I'm going to hit and run with Boa. He doesn't hit lefties very well. Hit and run, rolls the 5, gets the single, runner goes to third, and the Phillies have it going again, folks. Lazinski, batting third against lefties, fourth against righties, 67, strikes out. And your third baseman, Michael Jack Schmidt, 37 ball 4, and they are loaded with an out for Gary Maddox. They're going to play back, hope for a double play. 4-4 off KOOSMAN as catcher's card. McCarver. The Mets catcher McCarver seems so weird. 4-E-4. And you get a ground ball C with the bases loaded but playing back. So it was a number in front of the plate. He makes the play at first and the guy scores. So we actually will give Maddox an RBI on that one. A run will score. Everybody moved up, but there are 2 outs, second and third, for Bate McBride. 47 is a K. KOOSMAN gets out of it with minimal damage. Steve Henderson leading off in the second inning. Strikes out. Claude Washington, 48. Single 1-16 is a base hit. He's an ace stealer. Correll, he's going to steal. They have Bob Boone is given a day off with his -2 arm, but Correll's got a +2 arm. So Claude Washington will attempt to steal here, and he's safe. Bob Beal, switch hitting defensive-minded first baseman. 66 guys to right. And with 2 outs, Joel Youngblood, 39. And he gets a single to right field. Claudel, a 17 runner, 18-19 against the McBride arm, and he scores. We got a tie game. Jerry Gin Remy, 4-11, first C. Wanda, 1. Bottom of 2. Doug Alt, 2-4, bounces short. Vic Correll, another former Red and Brave, 1-11, ball 4. Mike Tyson, he platoons at second in the absence of the proper second baseman with Rob Wilfong for the Phils. 67 off of KOOSMAN is a K, and with 2 outs, Ray Gross, 59, rolls to second. We go to the third. It's Mazzilli, 56, bounces to second base. Tyson, 218, makes the play. Larvell, blanks, left. And Pete Rose, 64, catcher's card. And Correll, defensively, is a 4E15. Oh, yikes. But he makes the play. Bottom of the third, Larry Boa, 48, double 1-6 off of KOOSMAN. He gets the 2-base hit. Speed on the bases for Lazinski and Schmidt. 3-10 left. Michael Jack Schmidt. Let's take a look at Mike Schmidt's card from 1977. The Phils had an option to go to the 80 Schmidt card, which is an MVP season with 48 homers. But they also realized that Steve Carlton and Tug McGraw have Cy Young worthy seasons in that year as well, and they decided to, you can only do 2 bumps in the last year, and they bumped Carlton and McGraw. They're going to bump Schmidt next year. This card will expire, and they'll go to the 80 or 81 card. I might recommend the 81 card. The strike year, you know, less at bats, but an even better performance than he had in 80. So that's what's probably going to happen. But this is the 77 Schmidt card, 38 homers, 274 average, 27 doubles, 11 triples, 104 walks. The pitch to Mike Schmidt. 59 rolls to second. Runner goes to third. 2 outs for Gary Mathematics. 1-6, he rolls. Too short. Top of 4, in the vet, Tim McCarver, 43, right X. This is McBride. He can field. He's a 2E4 and right. And he makes the catch. Now McBride's another guy who had a magnificent 1980, and his card that I'm using is the 77 card. So just because I show you, just because the Phillies won the World Series in 1980, it's going to take a while to matriculate all those wonderful players onto this team, because that's the last of the 4 years. You get 2 players per year until eventually you'll end up with 8 players in the most important year. Steve Henderson, 1-9, base hit. Excuse me. 1-9 is actually fly ball left. Sorry about that, Mets. Colorado Washington, 53, rolls with the pitcher. Okay, nice pitcher's duel again. Happening a lot of that. We saw that in the Boston-Baltimore series. Bake McBride, 45, rolls to second base. Jin Remy's a 2E21 at second, and he boots the ball. First break of the game, defensively, for the Phils. Bake McBride, a double-A. That's right, he's a C stealer in 1980, but a double-A stealer in 77. And he's going to take off here. He should be safe. Ooh, a 17. Let's do some math, folks. We got a double-A, 17 plus 2 arm, right? I'm going to say 17, 18, 19 minus 2 for the away team to hold is back to 17, and he's safe. So I use a global home field advantage. Holding a runner for the home team's -3, for the road team's -2. One of the rules I use for my games, make it easier and simpler for me, give me a little bit of home field advantage, and that's exactly what he got. He would have been thrown out on the road with -3 holding. So it's Doug Alt. 45's a K. Vic Carell, same thing. And Tyson, 47K. Koosman battles back and strikes out the side with a runner at second and nobody out. We go to the 5th. Bob Beal, 17's a K. Youngblood, 57, bounces to second. This is Tyson, makes the play. And Jerry Jin Remy, 54, pops to second base. Let's pause a moment for station identification.
This is the Shrimp Trawler video channel.
Este es el canal de videos de camaroneros.
Okay, much better than the chamomile disaster of the previous series. We got like a quadruple barrel mode today, folks. Expect some fireworks now. Gray Gross, 1-6, ball 4. All right, we had this situation before. Boa hit and run, and it worked. Let's try again till it breaks. Rolls an 8, moves the runner to second with 1 out for Luzinski and Schmidt. The Bull, 2-7. Oh, let's take a look at his card anyway. 2-7 for Greg Luzinski. Now, yeah, frankly, I'd prefer him to crush righties more than lefties because you face more of them. But against lefties, that's a disappointing single on a 1. Line out to short, and that comes up to bite him here. And with 2 outs, it's Schmidt again. 37 is ball 4. 2 on, 2 outs, Gary Maddox. 45 off Koosman is a strikeout. The crafty Jerry Koosman, not giving in anything. Refuses to give in to these new look Phillies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He texts Seaver before and after starts. I don't think they had text messaging back in 1977. But anyway, top of the 6th, 1-1. Lee Mazzilli, 67. This guy's the center. Larvell Blanks, 110 left. And Pete Rose, 69, second base. Not doing Koosman any favors. Bottom of the 6th. Bake Sale, McBride, 211, rolls to the pitcher. Doug Alt. He ought to get a hit, and he does. A base hit in the center. Vic Carell, 68 off Koosman is a walk. And finally, Oh, not finally. He's a starter 7, so he can go a bit. Mike Tyson, though. First and second, 1 out. He's got power. Tyson, 1-9 on his card. Single 1 to 7. Line out to short, and he lines out to short on a 10. I believe we saw in the Philly Marlins game earlier how Correll and Tyson as bench players helped that team rally and win that game. So even as bench players, you need contributions. They didn't get it in that at bat, but Greg Gross, 2 on, 2 outs for a guy who has nothing but walks on his card against lefties. 68 off KOOSMAN is another walk, and that loads the bases. Now, KOOSMAN has not been the greatest control today. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 walks with all those strikeouts. And he has the bases loaded for Larry Boa. Let's take a look at Larry. 78 card, hits 294. Interestingly enough, we know by this card format that this means he was the leading hitter on that team, which means the Phillies in 78 did not have a player hit 300, which is interesting for a team that won the division. And for the second year in a row, third year in a row, lost in the LCS. Boa, though, here, a 1E10 with power against lefties. Get a load of that. The pitch to Larry Boa. 190 comes through with a clean single to center field. Alt scores. Correll, I think, has to hold at third. Yeah, he just doesn't have quite the wheels. Wait a minute. Hang on to your hats, folks. I might have to check this. If this is to Mazzilli and his noodle arm in center field, he might just actually run. So he's a 9 runner. 10, 11. What is the arm of your center fielder? Lee Mazzilli. It is +3. Vic Correll is chugging around, folks. He has no brakes on this tractor trailer. He's got a downshift. He is coming to home plate. McCarver is like closing his eyes and hoping for the best that he doesn't break any ribs here. The play at the plate. He scores on a 2. Vic Correll off the noodle arm of Lee Mazzilli. That becomes now a 2-run single. And the Phils grab a 3-1 lead. Gross does not go to third on the throw. He was probably too astonished to watch the collision. So, Gross is at second, Boa's still at first, and it's Luzinski. And KOOSMAN is beside himself at this particular moment. 3-1 Phillies, Greg Luzinski, 35 is ball 4. We have a lapse of concentration. But we have to leave our horse KOOSMAN in there because he's Jerry KOOSMAN, and that's just the way it goes. Bases loaded, 2 outs, not broken. To pitch to Mike Schmidt in an unenviable situation. The pitch to Mike Schmidt. 1-3, though, is a sky to center, and the Mets are still breathing in this one. It's only 3-1. KOOSMAN gets out of the mess. Let's count the men on base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 men. Only 3 have scored. Not bad. Erickson in the 7th. Phils have an outstanding bullpen. I'll be careful with Erickson so he doesn't get a loss as well as he's pitched. Not much. Oh, yeah, there is some defense you can bring in if you wanted to. Jorgensen, but they won't. Top of 7. 3-1 game. It'll be Tim McCarver. 4-4 off Erickson is a bouncer to third. This is Schmidt. Made an error earlier, but he makes the play here. Steve Henderson. 48. Single 1-3 lineout. And Claudel Washington. 3-10 rolls to second base. Let's break up Roger Erickson. Guy pitched briefly in the Twin organization. The Phillies took a chance on him as their 3 starter. And he comes through today in a 3-1 game. Stretch time here at the Vet. We are listening to MFSB, Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, Philadelphia, the sounds of Philadelphia, with their Universal Love LP of 1975. Gamble Huff, 3 Degrees, Sounds of Philadelphia, Philadelphia Freedom, all that wonderful stuff. For the city of brotherly love here in the bottom of the 7th inning, we've got KOOSMAN. Dare we, folks? Oh, we have to. What do we have to lose? We're a declining Mets team, and KOOSMAN is our last vestige of hope from the past. So KOOSMAN's going to come back out in the 7th inning after barely surviving the 6th and face Gary Maddox here. 47 is a strikeout. Bake McBride, 2-5, double to center field. Doug Alt, not one to inspire pitching changers. The pitch to Doug, 64. Bouncer to short, oh boy. Larvell blanks, a 4E28. And that is, of course, a single dot. Runners on the corners. KOOSMAN's arm is hanging on by a thread at this point. And it's Vic Carell. And they'll bring the infield up for the Vicster. 47 is a K. And with 2 outs and with 2 on, it'll be Mike Tyson. The pitch to Mike. 1-3. Skies a left field. Phils have done everything in this game to keep the Mets around. 15 runners, 3 have scored. They need the brilliance of Erickson to continue, or do they? Erickson can't lose. They'll go to Saucier, Garber, McGraw if needed. If he puts a man or 2 on. But you got the bottom of the lineup. Let's bring some defense, though, in. We're going to bring Luzinski in for Alt as a 1 at first base, because it sounds like an inning double play kind of result. We're going to bring in Bob Boone for Carell, just in case the Mets get some wild idea about trying to steal a base. Stick a pin in that idea. Let's go to the top of the 8th now. Erickson will go out, but you got Saucier, Garber, McGraw. They're all warming. 3 guys warming up at the same time. It's really complicated. The guys get hit by balls every once in a while. It's not smart. Should be more of a traffic school bus. What do I want to say there? The guy who blows the whistle and directs traffic. Never mind. Never mind, folks. Blew that analogy terribly. All right, 8th inning, Bob Beal, switch hitter, leads off for the Mets. 46 off Erickson is ball 4. Now it's time to think, because you got Youngblood here. Let's take a look at the Joel Youngblood card. It's not a spectacular card, but the Mets love their Joel Youngblood because he was an outstanding, hard-nosed defensive outfielder. But they often ask him, well, we know you're a great outfielder. Can you help us out a little bit in the infield? Third, short, second, stuff like that. But he hits 350 in 1981. So next year, most certainly they'll get that card in the league. And he hits righties better than lefties, as you've noticed. And Jerry Remy is on deck. You know, I'm going to go, this is crazy, I'm going to go Saucier here. Erickson does come out. Sorry, I know you pitched well, Roger. We have a bullpen that's World Series ready, so we're going to start using it. Kevin Saucier will come on in the 8th inning to face Joel Youngblood, because Joel's better against righties than lefties. And this is really a 2 at-bat entrance, because Saucier will pitch to Remy unless they bring in a right-handed batter for Remy, and then they'll go to the bench. Go to the bullpen again. So here is Joel Youngblood, the tie run with Beal at first. The pitch to Joel Youngblood. 2-8 is a sky to center field. All right, now the wheels continue to spin for both managers here. Jerry Remy. Let's take a look at Remy's card. Left-handed batter, second baseman. Has a decent amount of on base against lefties, but Saucier is lights out against them. If you were to go to a right-handed batter, that would get Saucier out of the game, but it would also get a better reliever, Gene Garber, into the game. So if I'm the Mets in this particular situation, I'm thinking of hanging with Remy. I really am. Your pinch hit options of Herndon, Knight, and Stearns are all seem great, but you have to understand that gets Saucier out of the game, puts Garber in, and then it's pretty much over at that point with Garber and Tug McGraw. Plus, I could even bunt with Remy, though I don't like to do that, particularly when you're down 2. That doesn't make any sense. So Remy will bat against Saucier here. The pitch to Jerry Remy. 53, right X. We get an X, and the right fielder is Mr. McBride. He of the 2E4 in right field. And he makes the catch. So now, even before Lee Mazzilli is announced as a switch hitter, that's it for Saucier. He gets his 2 guys out. And they might have Garber try a 4-out save here. McGraw got the save in game 1. These two guys are just chomping at the bit for innings. They're not getting enough work. So in the 8th, it'll be Gene Garber. Let's take a look at Gene Garber here now in the 8th to face Lee Mazzilli as the tie run with 2 outs. And the pitch to Lee Mazzilli. 46 off of Garber is a clean single left field. Beal will not make the third out at third, down 2. And that will get Larvell Blanks to the plate. Blanks, similar to Youngblood, a righty who's better against righties than lefties. And finally, the Mets get an opportunistic situation because they don't want to hook Garber after facing one batter and force McGraw into a 4-out save, and then you just exhausted your bullpen with only Roy Thomas left. So with 2 on and 2 outs, they'll take their chances with Larvell Blanks. Let's take a look at his card. Larvell Blanks against Gene Garber. The pitch here in the 9th. 54, center B. Tough one. Tough out there for the Mets. And having a towel draped around his head in the dugout was Jerry KOOSMAN, because he knew he wasn't going back out there for the 8th inning. He was exhausted, as the Mets seem to be deflated. Cannot push any runs across. It's 3-1. But let's get Jeff Reardon into the game. So mysteriously, Jeff Reardon came up through the Mets organization, was an outstanding closer in 1980, and for some reason they didn't hang on to him. They let him go to the Expos. I kind of would have held on to this dude, but they didn't. So Jeff Reardon's going to come on in the 8th. Try and keep it a 2-run game. You'll have the top of the Philly lineup in here. Greg Gross, 5'11", second X. This is Remy at 2E21. An error on Remy. He had an error last game. Oh, no, this game he had the error, right. Second error today for Jerry Remy. Not a good look. All right, now Boa, last 2 situations he hit and run. We're going to actually bat, as Boa is better hitter against righties than lefties. And Boa will swing away this time. 2-7 is a pop to first. Greg Luzinski. 3-10 is a strikeout. And with 2 outs, it's Mike Schmidt. 48 off of Reardon is a strikeout, so we will go to the 9th. The Mets are playing this to the wire, just a 2-run deficit. You got Rose, McCarver, Henderson, Washington, the meat in the Met order. Garber still pitching. Don't know when I would bring in McGraw. I guess if Garber puts 2 men on, I'd go to McGraw. But otherwise, this is Garber's game to finish. Garber's game to finish. So Pete Rose will lead off in the 9th against Gene Garber. Oh, we remember that. It was Garber who ended Pete Rose's 40-some-odd game hitting streak back in 1970, whatever. Might have been this year. 78? Let me check that Garber's card. Garber was pitching for the Phillies in 77. Oh, that makes sense. Then they traded him to the Braves. That's right. So Garber could have been pitching for the Phillies in 78. I think it was 78. Anyway, enough of that. Here is Pete Rose. He already got his hit, so we continue to whatever hitting streak he may have had. Here is Pete Rose against Gene Garber in the 9th. 53. Skies to right X. Again, Babe McBride. It's good they have a good defensive right fielder. He's been tested often today, and he makes the catch. Now, had you hit all those balls to left field, you had either a bad range of Luzinski or today's left fielder, Greg Gross, out there. But all those fly balls were hit to right field, where you have a vacuum cleaner named Babe McBride. So, with 1 out in the 9th, it's Tim McCarver. Let's take a look at the McCarver card, because you've been probably wondering, why is this dude hitting 4th? Well, because of this card, folks. McCarver, actually, in an attempt to burn the Phillies even more, hit .320 for the 77 Phillies, but is a member of the Mets. And Pete Rose, a future member of the Phillies, is on the Mets. But it hasn't quite worked out today. Maybe it'll work out now. Tim McCarver, the pitch to Tim. 66 off of Garber's, a line out to third. And with 2 outs, it's Steve Henderson. May as well look at his card as well. Henderson really comports well to the DH role in this era. The fact that we can pleasantly make him your designated hitter and he doesn't have to wander out into left field and hurt himself by catching a ball off the cranium. So good for Steve that he can be a DH in this format. And here, with 2 outs in the 9th, the pitch to Steve Henderson. 5-10 off of Garber is catcher's card. We did bring in Boone, I believe. Yes, we did make that decision earlier. A 2-4 to end the game, and the game is over, and it seems like same thing, different day. The Phils get enough done to beat the Mets by a score of 3-1. It's just a change of the guard, folks. Mets tried to flip some switches to inject the team with some life, but frankly, losing Tom Seaver, to me, that's just too much to overcome. The heart of the team, the heartbeat of the rotation, replacing the heartbeat of the rotation with Craig Swan. Yeah, doesn't seem to be the smart thing there. Reardon struck out a couple guys in the 8th inning. KOOSMAN, again, it's the odyssey. The 6 hits, the 3 runs, the bazillion walks. 8 walks and 9 strikeouts. But he battled. Only gave up the 3 runs because he's Jerry KOOSMAN. Garber does get the save. Coming in and facing Mazzilli, giving up a single. Soche got both of his batters out. Erickson gave you 7 decent innings and some batters, giving up just the 3 hits. A run in the 2nd inning was it. A walk and 2 strikeouts. There's your box. 1019 0108 3614. And for the moment, the Phillies have moved into sole possession of first place, a half game ahead of the Florida Marlins. Good news for them. They could really use a sweep of the Mets to secure themselves a division title, as the Marlins really been up to Cinderella status this year. We've had many Cinderellas in the Fall League, as we tend to get. We have the Ohio Players, the Seattle Mariners, the Florida Marlins, like these non-existent teams of this era. Well, I guess the Mariners did exist barely. Doing supernatural stuff. The Phillies are now 15-9, hitting .249 with a .269 team ERA. Look out for that, folks. The .269 ERA for the Phillies. If that continues, it's the Phillies world that we're living in. And because you expect Schmidt, Luzinski, and all those sticks, Greg Gross, Maddox, McBride, they'll all come around. But the .269 team ERA, yeah, they have Carlton on pace for a Cy Young. Christensen has backed him up. All that work Carlton does, he gets backed up by Christensen, and they're 10-2. And of course, at the back end, Garber with a couple saves, McGraw with 4 saves. They've pitched 25 innings combined, giving up just 5 runs. So the Phils have it all over the place, folks. They got it everywhere. Mets are now 8-15 in a lost season, hitting .257 with a .473 ERA. Yep, that's what happens when you don't employ Tom Seaver anymore. Craig Swan, Jerry KOOSMAN, Gary Serum, and Tom Hausman. Yikes. None of those guys have a winning record. Jeff Reardon has 4 saves of their 8 wins. Might want to hold on to that guy. Whoops. Yeah. So, I'll report back the continuation of this series as it goes into New York. The Phils need to win 1 more game, and they have home field for Game 5 if necessary. I'll report those results at the end of the video. But currently, this is now flipped. The Marlins now a half game behind the Phillies in the East. Thanks for checking out the video. We'll see you next time. Okay, baseball fans, so after that Game 2 victory, the series shifted to Shea Stadium for a Game 3. And in game number 3, didn't start well in the first for the Mets. A couple singles with 2 outs. And then a couple 2-out doubles. And it's quickly 3-0 with Rick Williams facing Gary Serum. RBI double by Rose in the first. And the fans gave Rose a smattering of applause, their new Hall of Famer, to replace Tom Seaver, their old displaced Hall of Famer. 3-1, interesting, in the third inning, an error by Pete Rose at third base, and then the boos start coming down in Shea Stadium, which is nasty. And then in the fourth inning, with a man on at first, a ground ball single off of Rose, and they start throwing some stuff on the field. I mean, this is a guy who got an RBI double in the first inning, and he's Pete freaking Rose. But come on, Met fans, give him a break. Anyway, 4-1 at this point. A homer in the fifth, Gary Maddox. It's 5-1. Gary Serum, he also out of the Twin farm system, as Roger Erickson was. It's interesting that each team had a guy from the Twins. Wonder who the Twins had. But guess what happens, folks? It's 5-1, 2 runs in the fifth. Rose gets a single to extend the inning and a ground ball out, makes it 5-3. Then in the seventh inning, with 2 men on, in a 5-2 game, another double by Pete Rose, who's 3 for 4 by this time, and a sac fly. It's tied at 5, and you get the idea, folks. They come back and tie it up to the Mets. We get to the ninth inning. You get a leadoff triple by Ray Knight, but then Lee Mazzilli hits a ground ball. The guy's thrown out the plate. An error by Larry Boa, which should have been a double play. And then it's Pete Rose who walks it off, and now they're cheering for him like he's the greatest Met of all time. Quickly, how fickle they are. 4 for 5 for Rose. The Mets avoid the sweep. They win Game 3, 6-5. Can they keep it going in Game 4? Steve Carlton versus Tom Hausman. No, they can't keep it going. A lot of triples in this game. A Mike Jorgensen triple. And then a Mike Schmidt 2-run triple. And then an RBI triple by Bake McBride. It's 5-0. Larry Herndon gets a triple, scores on a sac fly. Rose helps extend an inning in the eighth. Interesting, it was 5-1. Schmidt, a double to Stearns, a walk to McCarver, a hit by Rose, loads of bases, and Carlton's gone. And a 5-1 lead, asking Garber to get a 2-inning save. Garber and McGraw. And, of course, Gene Garber makes it interesting, but gets the job done. So Carlton gets a 7th win. They win the series 3-1 to the Phillies. One quick peek at the stats and the standings. You see that 3-1 series win will put the Phillies a half game up over the Marlins. And as far as stats go for the two squads, that's right, folks. Carlton is 7-1 on the year with an ERA of 2.76. It's not that great an ERA. I think his only loss he got lit up, but the 7 wins he's been sterling. And now you got Garber and McGraw with 3 and 4 saves for them. And the Mets' woes continue. That's it today. Hope you enjoyed the Mets-Phillies. Phillies in first place, winning the series 3-1.